given what's going on with growth here, one of the things many value investors, myself included, are thinking is, all right, it's time to add some exposure to value. And in fairness, we were probably thinking that about 3 years ago as well, not just now. But I wonder what you think about that idea that when a factor is out of favor, when something that's worked over the long term is not working now, that you can add exposure to it and do it in such a way that you can actually enhance your returns, or if you think that factor timing thing is basically, more of a difficult thing than is worth it for many people.
The timing, the big enchilada. Well, I think, okay, so, that's a really interesting subject in my opinion, but let's take a step back for just a minute and just define timing, because people think about timing in different ways. There's timing on the one hand, there's like all in, all out timing. Like, I think value is going to do great. I'm going to sell all my growth and buy value. Forget growth for a minute. Let's just say, like, let's take the factors that people generally agree on: quality, momentum, whatever, right? I think value is going to beat momentum over the next 10 years. I'm going to sell all my momentum and buy all value, or vice versa, right? I call that sort of like all in, all out moves. And then there's like the tilts. I think value is going to do better than momentum. I'm going to have, rather than have 50-50 exposure, I'm going to have 60-40 exposure, 70-30 exposure. As far as I can tell, all in, all out market timing, whether it's between stocks and bonds or stocks and cash or factors or whatever it is, doesn't work. Or at least, let me say it this way. I have begged, every time I've spoken publicly and privately, I have begged every person listening, if you have evidence of some sort of back test that shows a binary market timing scheme on any asset class in any regime, please send it to me. I want to see one example. I have never seen it. No one has ever taken me up on this. So I think I can confidently say binary market timing doesn't work. Like I said, whether it's factors, whether it's stocks and cash, whatever it is, forget about it. The more interesting question is whether tilts work. And what I would say about it is, in general, I think there's a lot of evidence that it can work modestly if done systematically and measuredly. But the T-stats are weak. In other words, you might be able to find. Sorry, for those listening who are not statisticians, the question is always: is the evidence robust enough that we can have confidence that we can say that it's not random chance, right? What statisticians will say is statistically, significant, and what's used for that is, generally speaking, a T statistic. Right? So in general, the evidence around tilts tends to be not incredibly robust. So it might be luck, it might not be, but I think there's enough evidence that you could try it and be okay. But, and here's a big but, with respect to factors, you have to ask yourself, what is going to be the impact on the portfolio? So let me give you an example. Let's say your portfolio is 50% equities and 50% bonds. And now you're doing factor timing on the 50% that's stocks. Now, even if you get value add, that's going to be diluted by 50%. So the overall result of the portfolio will be even weaker than the general weak result that you'll get from timing factors to begin with. So what I would say to you is, if you want to put in tilts around factors, if you want to say value has underperformed, therefore it should outperform in the next 10 years, I'm behind you all the way. I think these tilts are, in general, like I said, if you do it systematically and measuredly, I think it's fine. You might lose, you might win, but you won't win or lose by a ton that you'll have tons of regret. But just keep in mind that there's a lot bigger questions in your portfolio that you should get to before you ever get to factor timing. You should think about how much beta you have, how much stocks versus bonds you have in your portfolio. You should ask yourself whether you're tracking the broad market or whether you have factors in there at all. After you sort all that out, then I think it's fine to engage in some modest, tilts around factors. And yeah, I mean, to answer your question more directly, I do believe that in the coming years, value is going to outperform. If you want to add a little bit more value to your portfolio, I think that's a good idea. I support that.
Yeah, what we've seen is the behavioral part of that can be the challenging part, because people, when you're adding these tilts, people think they're going to get the timing of it right, and you're never going to get the timing of it right. So you're probably going to be early, and you're probably going to be underperforming because you did it, and then the ability to stick with it until it finally goes in your favor is probably the hardest part of it, at least from what we've seen.
100%. And I would go further. I would say this isn't a free lunch. So being early is the penalty, right? I mean, by definition, you can't get there late, and you're not going to get there on the day. So there's only one alternative, which is you got to be early. And so to the extent that you're going to be right, that you're going to get paid for that judgment, the price that you're going to pay is to be there early and to suffer. And if you're not willing to suffer, forget about it. You're not going to get paid at all. But I would argue it's not a free lunch, and that's the price you're going to pay.